So it's Mother's Day. I just want to come on here to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom. I love you so much. I appreciate all you've done. I appreciate all the siblings you've given me, and all the sacrifices you made as my mom. I really don't know what I would do without you. I'm super grateful and super blessed to call you my mom and to be able to experience life with you still by my side and to be able to call you whenever I need you and know that you're going to be there for me. So I love you, mommy. I hope this was the best Mother's Day ever. And I wish that you have many, many more. Love you.
Oh, thank you so much, Allie. That was one of my children. And I want to wish every mom happy Mother's Day. So I'm not going to be long, but I just wanted to talk about some advice that you have gotten as a mom or something that you've given to other people, because this is a great day just to remember, why you do what you do and recognize that sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We have what we feel are big shoes to fill, whether it's our mothers or grandmothers or great grandmothers. We just have this way of putting the pressure on ourselves and thinking, oh, I want to be like they were, because over time we can appreciate the things that they did for us while we were younger. I always remember when I go to different spaces and have conversations, and I tell people, oh my gosh, you have so much wisdom. Why were you not around when I was younger? So that I could have a head start in some of the things that I am challenged with. And then I say, I know it was around me the whole time. I just wasn't listening, because I think sometimes when we go through that growth pattern, like, oh, we know everything there is to know. Our parents are old, they're not in touch with what's going on. And then later on, we can really appreciate their strength, their perseverance, and their ability to hold the line, on some things that we just really were trying to rebel and push over. So, I'm really grateful for the people and family that have helped me to be the mother that I am today. So, I'm going to be on here briefly talking about some advice, and I would love for you to share in the comments some things that you are grateful for. What are some things that other people have told you that have helped to shape and mold you to be the person that you are? Now, I think a lot of times when we go back and reflect, some of these things we were told and weren't even listening, right? And then over time, they kept saying it enough that it really started to stick and take a hold and really lead us as we go about our journey. So before I get into all these different advice and different things that I would share, I want to introduce myself. So I'm Lachelle, also known as America's Supermom, mother of 15 children, and I'm a media strategist to help you to monetize your message and create a global impact in the world through media. Now, a lot of people think, oh, media, I already know what that is. It's all about just TV or movies, and that's not true, right? There's media with press releases or newsletters, blogs, podcasts, just simply posting on social media, radio. I mean, there's so many different ways, commercials that we can show up that a lot of times we think, oh, it's too expensive, or what do I have to say that requires me to be in the media? But I'm sure if you are watching this broadcast on any form, any platform, that you see the value of social media, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or some of these other places like X or Twitch and some other things. I mean, the list can go on and on. You see the power of being in the palm of someone's hand. And that's what I say to being on streaming platforms, because that's how it is. If anyone is carrying a phone, it is so powerful because you don't have to just be in your home. You don't have to be in your living room watching something on TV in order for you to realize what the news is or what's popular or what's trending. You can simply have it in the palm of your hand. So I am passionate about helping people to spread their message because there's so many people that are out here doing phenomenal things, and a lot of people don't have the exposure to share that with the world. And so people are going out here not being served because the people that they're looking for are just not found. Okay, so that is what my mission is. So we're talking about advice. It's Mother's Day, and that video was repurposed, right? So that's another thing. That was a video that was created last year. That was my daughter Alexandria, and I have like 7 or 8 more of those videos that were done for me, for my children, for a broadcast that I was on last year. And so that's the first piece of advice that I would say, is that, you can repurpose some things that you have given to your children or to family members. You don't have to have everything be in the now, right? And it could be that more impactful. So, we're talking about a video, right? But just imagine 10 years, 20 years from now, when I'm older, when my daughter's older, to look back and reflect over that video, right? Some things are just timeless because it's about the message and not necessarily about, when it happens in real time. So the same thing happens if you have some family recipes that you would want to share. You can just write them down, share them in a video. I think video is really special because, we have cooking shows and people spend hours. I know that was one of my things with Rachel Ray, because I was an only child, didn't know how to cook. So I had to learn the hard way. And my poor husband, he probably had a lot of stuff that he took one bite of, smiled, and then threw it in the trash, right? But Rachel Ray was my mentor who helped me to cook a lot of meals and get more comfortable in the kitchen. And so it really was a blessing that time that I spent watching her, to actually meet her in person and be on her show, it was just something that I will always treasure. And then she took it up a notch. It was my daughter's birthday when I went to the studio to be on her show. And so she gifted our entire family a birthday dinner at a restaurant of our choice. And she paid for everything, even the tips. So that is just a moment that I'll be forever grateful. But that's another piece of advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? A lot of times we put too much pressure on ourselves thinking we have to have all the answers. I'm just talking about my own journey. As a mom, I felt like, oh, I have to know everything. I can't be asking other people. And that is a quick way to get you on the overwhelmed, stressed out anxiety track. So if you want to get off that, it's okay to ask people for help. And so this is a great way that you can build deeper relationships and you can connect with people so much better. Because I know for myself, I love when people ask me for help because it makes me feel good to be able to share with them. Right. So if someone's like, oh my gosh, how do you, make egg rolls? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is so easy. This is what you do. I walk them through it. I'm so excited about it. I feel like I'm adding value. And so we give people opportunities to add value when we simply ask for help. So that's another piece of advice, because sometimes we can put the pressure on ourselves and we can go way into a downward spiral, and other people are just clueless about how did this happen? What is going on? But it's all in our own head. It's the pressure that we put on ourselves. And so another piece of advice is to smile. Now, for me, a smile is an acronym for our mental wellness. And I went through 13 years of depression, 3 hospitalizations, to come back full circle and learn this lesson about the value of a smile. So SMILE is an acronym for 5 areas that I feel I have to be very conscious of on a daily basis in order to make sure that I'm in the right headspace. And so those 5 places or 5 characteristics or topics are sleep, and it just so happens to be Better Sleep Month for the month of May. So it's sleep, mood, inner voice, laughter, and energy. So those are areas that I was very deficient in. And it just kept going. One day I couldn't sleep. The next day my mood wasn't right. And it was just like this cycle that just lasted. And I began to think that that was the only reality that I was going to have, was to always be trying to play catch up, not having enough energy, very serious, no time for laughter. I couldn't even really enjoy myself because I had so much stress and anxiety over all these expectations that I had for myself that were really impossible to accomplish. So remember to smile. So, not just a smile on your face, but remembering those 5 aspects or pillars that are important to your mental wellness. So, if you can just quickly look at them, what's my mood been? A lot of times we'll have the same mood for weeks and not even realize it. So if your mood is like, man, I'm just not in a good mood, or, people aren't calling me, or, they don't want to be around me, really examine, what does that mean? Are your kids like running, from you and not even, engaging in you or something, right? So these are some things to really kind of be mindful of. And then, like, if you haven't laughed, you can simply get on social media and look at cat videos or animal videos, babies, just different things that some jokes, right? Comedy, because laughter does the heart good like medicine. So those are some things that you can gauge, and you can begin to recognize, what's my inner voice? Have I really been a good friend to myself? Right? Am I saying negative things to myself? Am I putting myself down? These are some things to explore. And then we even recognize, what about our energy, right? Am I just sluggish all the time? And then we can explore other things. Maybe we need to eat different things. Maybe we need to change our routine or sleep pattern. So these are some things that we can be proactive about rather than waiting too far long when it's a problem. All right. Another piece of advice is to let go of things that don't serve you, right? A lot of times we feel like, oh my gosh, I have to keep doing this. Now, when your kids go through development stages, we kind of pull them along and we have to get them to where they need to be. So, when you're potty training, a lot of times the kids are kind of having this battle. They like, you changing their diaper, and they really sometimes don't want to be responsible for using the restroom. But as a parent, as a mother, we just pull them right along. This is how it's going to be. And so when we think about some things that don't serve us, are we still trying to carry that burden for somebody when they could be doing the work for themselves, right? Same thing if we're carrying our children when they can walk, right? If we're speaking for them, if they can talk. Same thing, it could be at work. Maybe someone, you just have been doing all the things, you feel like you can get it done faster, but somebody else really can be responsible for it. So these are some things that we might want to consider when we think about letting go of what doesn't serve us. And a lot of times when we are holding on to things, we end up giving ourselves burnout, overwhelm, anxiety about trying to do all the things instead of letting go and possibly delegating to people that might have the energy, enthusiasm to do it better than us. And then another piece of advice is to know your value. So often we get into comparison, measuring ourselves against other people, and we forget the value that we have within ourselves. So knowing your value is important because I know I'm not a tech person. So if someone is asking me about technology, I'm like quickly referring them to somebody else in my network or one of my children, because that is just not my gift. But then when I understand that my value is I can do a podcast, or I don't mind interviewing people, or I'm happy to have a conversation around a topic that challenges me. When you know your value, then you know how much you can handle, where your zone of genius is, and it makes for a better experience for everybody, because you're not trying to do all the things. You're not comparing yourself to other people, and you are having other people feel comfortable having a seat at the table doing the things that they enjoy. Now, a favorite quote that I would share is that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. So for me, that has been a game changer, because so often I would sacrifice something I had or something I wanted to do for my kids, my spouse, friends, neighbors, and then I would get the short end of the stick, and then I'd be upset about it later on, right? So when you learn that you don't have to put yourself on fire to keep other people warm, you can simply go get some firewood, right? Instead of burning up yourself. And so what that might look like is, hey, I can't do it today, but I have some free time on Friday. Or simply, that's just not my gift. I can turn that over to somebody else. Or no, thank you, right? Oftentimes we feel no is something that is not worthy of us sharing to other people. And it's a complete sentence. It took me a lot of time to start learning this, but you find that there are times that how other people will respond. You've gotten used to the boundaries that they set up. So we will honor other people's boundaries, but not honor our own. Now, boundaries are not for us to dictate what somebody else does, but they're for ourselves in order for us to keep ourselves safe. So if one of your boundaries is, I refuse to let people yell at me. So if that's a boundary, when someone starts yelling, then you're quick to say, you know what, that is something I won't tolerate. And then you leave the room, leave the house, leave wherever you're at, because that's a boundary you have set for yourself. So when you set that boundary, we can't expect other people to honor our boundary. But if someone tries to cross that boundary, then we know what our next move will be, right? So it's understanding this from the very beginning, so that when things get heated or whatever the case may be, or a boundary could be if I am, one that likes to have fun and have a drink, but my boundary is one drink, right? Whatever that drink may be. And I refuse to get more than that. So if that's a boundary for you, other people may ask, oh my gosh, let me buy you a drink. And you're like, no, I've reached my limit. Thank you so much for asking, though, right? So a lot of times we don't really have clearly defined boundaries. And so then later on, when we're in the moment of something, it's hard for us to maintain our value or our beliefs, because we hadn't established that with ourselves ahead of time. So boundaries are another thing that I would say is a great piece of advice. Um, Being present. Sometimes as a mom, when our kids come in, we may be distracted with the bills that just came in the mail, or maybe we have a project at work, or we're trying to figure out, what we're going to cook. We had something else laid out, but we decided to change it because we're actually just tired. We're tired. We don't feel like making what we had decided to make. And so our mind is thinking about all these different things, and our children come in and we can't even hear what they're saying. But a piece of advice is to let those things go and be present with the person that is with you. There's a term that says, be present where your feet are. So if your feet are with you right now, that's where you need to be present in the space. And so whenever someone even comes to interact with you, that is a great way that you can make a deeper connection. And a lot of times we can be present and address the needs more efficiently and effectively than if we were still in this roller coaster of a lot of thought, right? So our kid could come in and have something to say. And if we were just present and listened and thoroughly got whatever they wanted, uh, addressed, then they may leave us for another hour, right? But if we're not present, we're not clear on giving them the right answer, or later on, it turns into be a problem because we didn't really hear what they asked. And so they go and take some action, and we go in there. We're like, what in the world is going on? And they're like, well, we asked you if we could do XYZ, but you can't even get upset because you were barely listening. You see what I'm saying? So being present is so important because it can really diffuse a lot of future problems, and it can really help you to kind of have that break, right, from whatever it is you may be thinking about. It's the time for you to say, pause, let me just hold that thought. Let me be present with my child, my spouse, my coworker, or whoever, because whatever you're thinking about, write it down on a piece of paper. Sometimes when we write things down, we see other options because it helps us to be an observer rather than being in the situation. So there's a phrase that says, it's hard to see the picture if you're in the frame. So when you write things down, you become an observer to be able to look at that on paper, not be emotionally attached to it, and you can come up with some creative ways to solve a problem. Two more things that I want to say. Community helps to build consistency. So a lot of people ask me, oh my gosh, you've got 15 kids. How do you do all these things? I see you on LinkedIn. I see you on Facebook, Instagram. I'm getting emails from you. You're on podcasts. You got your TV show, all these things. How are you doing it? Well, the first thing is that I'm passionate about what I do. And I feel like what I do is not even work. The second thing is that I have a community, teamwork. A lot of things that I do, I don't do alone. And I even enjoy having my kids a part of some of the things that I do. Because when you have community, it helps you to show up in some form or fashion on a regular basis because you're not the one doing everything. And when you have community, you don't necessarily have to be the one getting credit. So for me, being a high performer and being raised as an only child, a lot of my mindset was around, getting the credit, doing it my way, all these things that for me, I thought they were great insight, but it really had a scarcity mindset because I would be overwhelmed, anxious because I'm trying to be up, do all the things, doing all the research, doing things that I'm not gifted in, all because I wanted to get the credit. So I've learned that just doesn't serve me anymore. So when you have community, it doesn't matter who gets the credit, everybody wins. So people are able to do whatever their zone of genius is, and everybody benefits. Okay. Laughing at our mistakes, right? That's the last thing that I would say. It's important to realize that, life is for living. And I have challenged myself to really look at life as an experiment, right? So if you were part of my generation, we used to have science fair. And with science fair, you had to come up with a hypothesis. You had to test that hypothesis with different things. And then you had to log your results. And so over time, you had to figure out, was the hypothesis right? What did it take in order for it to be right? Or was it completely wrong? And so it was actually like an experiment. And so when I look at the things that I do, I can laugh at myself because I can say, oh, well, that definitely wasn't the right answer. That didn't work. And then I can move on to the next thing. But if we get too attached with our identity around things that, We're trying, we're exploring. It makes it where we're very hesitant to try new things because we don't want to have what we call something doesn't work out right, or it's a failure or something like that. So these are a number of pieces of advice that I wanted to share, because Mother's Day is a great time even to remember our loved ones that are no longer here. Our moms serve to help equip us to be better versions of ourselves. And so I'm sure you have great advice that you could share, whether it's a quote or a story. We would love to hear. And I challenge you, maybe put it in a video, right? Create a link. Maybe it could be a YouTube short or an Instagram reel, and put the link in the chat. Just a quick share around what advice you would give. Because, in order for us to make the world a better place, we have to learn to connect with each other. We have to build deeper, more impactful relationships. And that's simply by being vulnerable and transparent and letting each other know what we're thinking. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. And to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.